It's about I gotta say, it's the stupidest thing in sports.
Whoa, he has trouble with the snap, and the ball is free. It's picked up by Michigan State. Jalen Watts Jackson, and he scores on the left.
All the dramatic things I've ever seen. Roger Clemens.
Will cut it off. Galarraga covers. He's out. No.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Oh, throws it down.
DeBrincat gets it back to Goss's Baron across now. Kane.
Say Raymond. They score. Raymond. Bob Johnson the throw, and it's caught by St. Brown for a first down.
This is BS Sports.
And away we go. I just realized my throat. As soon as I said that, that sounded terrible. I'm sorry. Hi, everybody. I'm back. And Detroit Tiger baseball is back in Detroit in the playoffs. I mean, not today, tomorrow, but it's back. I got to tell you, I've watched a lot of sports in my time, as you probably are well aware. When Kerry Carpenter hit that home run, I'm pretty sure that was one of the happiest moments of my life. Top 5, at least. I mean, like, I'm sure I got a lot more moments to live up to in the future here. But that Kerry bomb was absolutely, there was a part of me that in the back of my head was like, all right, if he could, like, hit a home run, that would be insane. All I need is a base hit, right? At that point, all I need is one run, and we're going to win the game, right? Because our pitching has just been that good. But Kerry Bonds comes in and just says, hey, Emmanuel, watch this, and just shoots that ball into the seats. I've never seen so many Cleveland fans so dejected since the last time that Cleveland gave up a big home run late in a playoff series. I'm sorry, that was cruel. I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to remind Cleveland baseball fans of 2016 any more than they already are reminded of that. But we got a great show. We got a loaded show. Let me tell you, we got so much to get to. Crazy week in college football. MSU sucks, so we got to talk about them. But outside of that, insane week in college football. So many upsets. I've described this week as the week of the upset. NFL week was also pretty amazing. Robert Saleh got fired, which I called for on Sunday. And we'll talk about that later because that game in London against Minnesota was unforgivable. He deserves to get fired, and we'll get to it. I'm already working myself up because I can't stand Robert Saleh. But that was crazy. We're going to obviously lead with the baseball playoffs because that's the news of the day, and the Tigers are in it. I didn't think that this was going to be the year that we were going to be able to lead an October show with baseball and have it be relevant to the team that I like to cover, being the Tigers. I didn't think that was going to happen. Meanwhile, the Mets up 4-0 over the poor Phillies. You know, it's just too bad. You know, they're just such a likable team. Everybody likes the Phillies, right? No? Just loser Philly fans who probably couldn't identify a baseball player if he walked into a room with them? No? Just okay. But we also have a little NHL season preview. The NHL starts today, technically. The Red Wings start on Thursday. I'm wearing the Red Wings shirt with the classic, the old English D logo. I love this shirt. This is a great shirt. But we're gonna talk about it because I got some stuff I gotta talk about with the Red Wings, and it's not all positive, as opposed to much of the talk you'll probably see from the Detroit Red Wings subreddit or any YouTube channel covering the Red Wings. For the most part, you go into the comments, everybody's talking about how the Red Wings are the next big thing, and I'm not yet convinced. We'll talk about it, but all right, let's just jump into it. Okay. Playoff baseball, Tigers get smoked in game 1 against, well, you know what? Actually, we got to go even further back. First of all, the Tigers win 2 out of 3 against Houston. That was huge. That was amazing. Andy Ibanez, bases loaded, clears the bases with a double in a situation where they were down. He is the lefty killer, and he came in and killed a lefty in the exact right moment. Like, the thing is, overall in this postseason for the Tigers, their offense really hasn't been all that good. Like, if you really look at it, let me see if I can find postseason stats here. Here we go. Like, you really look at it, you don't have any one guy or really you have a lot of guys that are really not doing a whole lot. I mean, Riley Green has been largely terrible. Obviously, very, 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 very small sample size. But you even have also guys, Colt Keith hasn't got a hit the entire postseason, despite the fact that he's got 5 walks. So he's gotten on base, but not been on the base hit. Spencer Torkelson still has yet to do anything. For the most part, Trey Sweeney, despite his clutch hitting, has really not played all that well. But it doesn't even matter because all they need is the hit when it matters, right? All that matters, they get the hit in the clutch spots, and that's where Parker Meadows comes in with a home run against the Astros. Yesterday, Jake Rogers and then Trey Sweeney both get singles, and then Kerry Carpenter hits the bunt. Like, the first game against Cleveland notwithstanding, the Tigers have been winning these postseason games in the exact way that they were winning the regular season games. It wasn't with, Riley Green or Kerry Carpenter or Andy Abaniers, any of these guys just going in and hitting 400. It was with a bunch of random guys getting timely hits or drawing walks or having long at-bats and playing good defense. And I've been saying this. This is a team that from top to bottom is playing a brand of baseball that it's not flashy. It's not going to make ESPN's top 10 plays, except for some of those Parker Meadows catches. But it is a winning formula. It's pitching, it's deep pitching in the bullpen, and Tarek Skubal at this point, if he's not the best pitcher in baseball, you're just not watching the sport. I'm sorry. He's far and away the best pitcher in baseball. He went, let me see if I can get his stats from that game yesterday. Tarek Skubal, Cleveland Guardians. If I could just see what was yesterday? 10-7-2024. Okay, here's throw 7 scoreless. Or actually, post-game thread. I can just look at it here. Where is the stats? This is not helpful. Hold on. We're going to get to it. All right, here we go. Tarek Skubal pitched, hold on, 7 innings, 3 hits, no earned runs, no walks, and 8 strikeouts. I don't care who you're pitching. I don't care who you're playing. You pitch 7 innings and you don't even give up a walk. He had a hit by pitch. He did have that, but he didn't have a walk. And that is the difference. It doesn't show up in the box score, I guess, the hit by pitch. Tarek Skubal has been absolutely phenomenal. I'm sorry, I just don't see how any pitcher is even remotely in his category. I'm trying to think of other guys that people might, I guess Chris Sale. Chris Sale had a crazy year, but it's not even a question. It's not even a question for me that Tarek Skubal is the best pitcher in baseball. And the thing that really impressed me yesterday as well, and this was pointed out on Sports Talk Radio as I was listening today, one of the things that was particularly impressive about the win was the strike zone was not all that good. At least there was a few times I was like, oh, that's a striker. Oh, that's outside. And Tarek Skubal immediately identified it and he went to work. I mean, it didn't matter. He had Jose Ramirez 0 for 2 Ks, didn't do a single thing. Who, by the way, no disrespect to Jose Ramirez, but so far in the postseason batting below the Mendoza line. Again, very, 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 very small sample size, but still, he has not had a very good postseason. And even guys like David Fry didn't do much against Tarek Skubal. Strikeout, no hits. Stephen Kwan had just the 1 hit. Josh Naylor had the only extra base hit for Cleveland all game. I mean, the point is, this pitching staff is good enough to go up against some of the best hitters. And I just don't see, who in the National League or who in the American League is better than Tarek Skubal. And I encourage people who are not Tiger fans, tell me who's better than Tarek Skubal, because I can't rationalize my way out of it. I can't. I mean, now I'm going down a rabbit hole. Tarek Skubal, baseball savant. Let's take a look here, because I'm sure this is just going to be a screen of red. I'm going to be like a bull. Look at this. Wait for it to load. I mean, my God. He is in the 94th percentile on expected ERA. 87th percentile in expected batting average, 89th percentile in fastball velo, average 84 in average exit velo, 76 in chase rate, 90 in whiff rate, 91 in K rate, 95 in walk rate. That means that 5% of pitchers in baseball have a lower walk rate than Tarek Skubal. Barrel rate, 70. Hard hit rate, 80. He has basically the only thing that is not in the red for him is his extension, which I don't even know what the hell that is. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, he is far and away if he's not a unanimous Cy Young winner, then I hate to use this phrase because I think it's stupid. Then it really is Detroit versus everybody. Because I'm sorry, there's no world where he is not only the best pitcher in the American League, but the best pitcher in MLB. He is absolutely lights out. He hasn't lost a game in, I think, like 7 starts or something like that. Like, he is beyond some of these pitchers. It's not even particularly close. Let's read some comments here. Skubal's absolutely the best pitcher in baseball. Hopefully a carry home run can get some of the other guys to hit a little better. Yeah, look, here's the thing, MSU Detroit fan. Like, I don't think obviously, I want guys like Green and Torkelson. And, I mean, just look at some of the other numbers here. If I can pull them up. Colt Keith, even guys like, Trey Sweeney to try to heat up. But, they're getting the timely hits. And they're putting pressure on pitching staffs. And that in and of itself, that little small ball where, you got another runner in scoring position, pitching in a high leverage spot, you're forcing them to show their hand a little bit more, force the defense to have to make plays. Like, I'm cool with it. Like, obviously, I'd love for us to go out tomorrow afternoon and drop a 30 bomb on them, right? I'd love for us to just go out and score 12, but that's realistically not really going to happen most likely, and we don't need it to happen. We can win games 4-0. We can win games 2-1. We can win games 3-2. This pitching is good enough, and it's good enough against some of the best hitters in baseball that the Guardians do have, by the way. Stephen Kwan and Jose Ramirez and David Fry, these guys were all-stars, all right? We're not doing, and I know that it's in the playoffs, and at this point it goes without saying, but we're not doing this against the Rockies, okay? We're doing this against playoff teams with, actual playoff experience. Jose Ramirez has playoff experience. I mean, the Astros, like that whole team had playoff experience, and we swept them. Very well, we could sweep the Guardians at home here. I think Comerica Park is going to be one of the most electric it has been certainly since 2014 when the Orioles came to town, but probably even more so because it has been so long. I'm just saying, look, Detroit, when you bring a winner to Detroit, those crowds are absolutely like a death sentence to the opposing team. We saw it with Detroit last year in the playoffs. Matthew Stafford, Baker Mayfield, both of those guys were like, I couldn't hear what was going on. Like, nobody could hear this. It is electric. And I think Comerica is going to be an absolute zoo tomorrow. I'm looking forward to watching that game and seeing the crowd because it's going to be an absolute zoo. It's going to be insane. No pun intended given the Tigers, but it's going to be a zoo. I think it's going to be shoulder to shoulder. You're going to have people all over on the Comerica Park, on the Comerica Landing. There's going to be people on the Ferris wheel. There's going to be people on the merry-go-round. You're going to have Pause is going to make an appearance at some point on the broadcast, I'm sure. He's going to be hiding in the back there like he does when the game's about to close out. It's going to be fun. It's going to be so much fun. And look, I love baseball. It is so, like, there's just something about this game that is just so, like, glorious and dramatic. And in the postseason, that's when it really gets exciting. Like, a lot of people, regular season baseball, it's basically just nothing. Postseason, I mean, literally, if you don't watch baseball, if you're not a big baseball guy, turn on any of the baseball games. You are going to get hyped. I'm telling you, it's basically impossible. I mean, right now the Mets are up 5-0, 6-0, I should say. Maybe, just got caught out at home, but 7-0 to, or are they saying 7? Or was that one run taken away? Either way, the Mets are kicking the doors off the Phillies. Like, the Mets are kind of the equivalent of the Tigers in the National League, if I'm being perfectly honest. A team that pretty much nobody thought was going to make the playoffs. That's largely not, largely kind of a dysfunctional team. I mean, granted, they have far more stars. They got Lindor, they got the Polar Bear, they got Alonso, but still. All of that being said, because I want to wrap this segment up. The Tigers got 2 games at home, and I don't think they're going to play that game 5. I feel like we're gonna ride this high all the way to the ALCS, and then I just don't know because again, in playoff baseball, it's anybody's game. All you got to do is make it. It's like the NHL. All you got to do is make it, and then anything can happen. So go Tigers tomorrow. I think this is going to be a heck of a run here for Detroit. And you know what? If it ends here, it'll be disappointing. But you know what? This was a heck of a run. Nobody expected the Tigers to be where they're at. Certainly not me. I didn't think they were going to make the playoffs this year. So I'm just happy to be here. And then the real expectations will start next year. So have fun while we have it. And yeah, I got nothing more. Eat them up, Tigers. Eat them up. Let's see here. I'll read a few more comments here. I think the series is going the distance. Green, Keith, Torkelson need to get some hits. I agree totally, especially Torkelson. He's been terrible, which is really unfortunate because you figure with the postseason flip of stats for him, you think that'd be a good restart for him, but he's been awful, which is really unfortunate. He's gotten a couple of walks, but he really has not been able to put together a clutch hit or any hits, let alone. And same with Green as well, which is surprising. He was probably our most consistent hitter. But he has been anything but. Let's see. Pistons actually putting up a few points against the Suns. All right. Yeah, I'm rocking the Pistons hat today because Pistons preseason game is tonight. I know I would have worn the Tiger hat, but I was like, well, Pistons are playing tonight. We gotta rep the home team, and they're in the Breslin, so that's kind of cool. I mean, it's a preseason game, so it doesn't really matter, but still, they won their first preseason game against the Bucks, which is. I mean, I'll never complain about a team winning, especially with the Pistons. They don't do a whole lot of that. Spend their whole season playing at the Breslin Center. Hey, they probably play better than the normal team that plays there. Be nice to jump on Cleveland early tomorrow. I agree totally. They're gonna be starting. I don't even know who it is. It's like Austin Gomber, something like that. Some random pitcher because Cleveland, similar deal to Detroit. They had a lot of injuries to their starting pitching. However, they don't have AJ Hinch as their manager, so they're dealing with some veterans and putting some guys in as openers. I mean, we saw it yesterday with former Tiger Matt Boyd, who I did not even know was still in the league, and apparently makes his first postseason start. And he actually pitched pretty good against us. So shout out Matt Boyd. Let's see. The way these first 2 games have been, the team that scores first could possibly be the team that wins. Yeah, that seems that way. I mean, it is. The thing is, depending on how early that scoring happens, like if you score first and it's like 2-0 after 1, you got 8-9 innings to come back on that. That's nothing. But you look at a game like this where the Mets, they went up 2-0 in like the 4th or 5th. I'd have to look at what the exact number is, and they just haven't looked back. And the Phillies now down 6 runs in the top of the 8th, but they get the leadoff man on. Yeah, they're basically trying to just get out of here and try to get that split on their game. I don't think they play tomorrow. They might play tomorrow. I don't know. But before we move on to the rest of the stuff, I guess I should talk about the rest of the postseason because there have been some storylines. So first of all, we'll get Game 3 of the Padres Dodgers coming up here. But Padres and Dodgers split 2. Look, Padres got 2 games in San Diego. I'm just saying, like, I talked about the Padres being one of the most dangerous teams in the National League because their bullpen and their clutch hitting, similar to Detroit. They are a deadly team, and right now, that blowout win that they had in LA, that was a big statement win for them. They got a chance to close out that series, and I frankly think they will do it because the Dodgers are just choke artists, or at least Dave Roberts is, which really sucks if they end up losing because then basically we got all this offseason hype for 4 postseason games of Shohei Ohtani, who, granted, did deliver, at least in that first game. Do we still have faith in Foley? I'm on the fence with him. I still have faith. I'm totally good with Foley. Foley is he'll ebb and flow for sure. And if Foley's struggling, we saw yesterday AJ go for Bo Brisky for the save. I'm totally cool with it. I'm basically Zing Dad and everybody else. I'm cool basically with whatever AJ wants at this point, because you got us into the second round of the playoffs. Do whatever you want. Do whatever. Like next year. Then we'll probably be talking, scrupulosity in terms of like, okay, why'd you do this? Why wasn't the move this? And then off-season stuff and all that. We'll talk about that. But as far as like whether or not he puts Foley in, he doesn't put Foley in, he puts Bo Brisky in, he puts Bo Brisky, he doesn't put. I'm cool with it. Just have fun. Just ride the high. Ride the high. We have a chance. We're 2 wins away from an ALCS berth for the first time since 2013. That's like. I was in 7th grade, okay? Like, I'm 25 years old, for reference. So, yeah, crazy stuff. And I guess I'll talk about this series as well, because it's on right now. Phillies storm back to tie up the series, but now they're getting blown out to the Mets at home. The Phillies, to me, since the trade deadline, they were kind of a mid-team the whole way. I think people sort of forgot about them because they really didn't do anything in the trade deadline, which to me is like typical Dave Dombrowski. Is like, yeah, we're not going to do much of it. We're going to run it back. We're going to just run it with our guys. And look, baseball especially is a sport of runs. And I mean, literally, and it's a sport of who's hot at the right time. The Phillies have not been hot for a really long time. Really, again, since basically the trade deadline. I want to say they're about a 500 team. And now division rival Mets, they got a chance. They're also playing with house money because they didn't fully expect to be here at this point. Whereas the Phillies, they just feel like a very complicit team, and I maybe it's just because I have bad feelings about Dave Dombrowski because he never won anything here in Detroit, but he wins everywhere else. But I guess I just don't feel that confident in this Philly team because it's a lot of stars, it's a lot of sizzle, but to me, there's not a whole lot of stake in that Philly team. That's just me, though. I'm just a casual. I'm sure the Philly sports fans don't like to hear that, but hey, I mean, you're down 6-0 in the top of the 8th inning. I don't know what do you want from me? Do you want me to tell you how pretty you are? You're not right now. You're down 6 runs, and the Mets have a chance to end this series in the next game. So, and Philly does choke a lot in the playoffs. I mean, look, to me, when you get no hit in the World Series, I lose a lot of respect for you. Okay. I'm like, okay, all right. Like, you do a thing that hasn't happened since before my grandfather was like a child. Yeah. Like that's, I lose a lot of my respect. That's what I'm saying. In other playoff baseball news, Royals even it out with the Yanks. So I pointed this question out, and I'm just like, is every series just going to be won by the underdog at this point? Like the Mets right now, they have a chance to close out this series if they can finish this game with a win today. The Royals have tied their series up. The Tigers obviously tied their series up. The Padres tied their series up. Is this just like the year of the underdog? Because I'm here for it. I mean, we saw something very similar happen last year where you had Arizona and Texas just run through everybody. Both those teams were not powerhouses coming into the playoffs. So I think it just sort of it feels that way, at least. Like I don't have any evidence to suggest that it necessarily is going to turn out that way. But if we have an AL and NLCS of Tigers, Royals, and Padres, Mets, I really don't think the baseball world is going to be complaining. I think the big media is going to be complaining because, oh no, we can't go to LA, we can't go to Philly, we can't go to New York. Well, I guess you can go to New York, you got the Mets. But, the Mets are the second tier brand behind the Yankees. But to me, I don't know. It's just like the Yankees and the Dodgers, it's like the Spider-Man meme. It's like two guys looking at each other, two teams that always seem to choke in the playoffs, doing the same gosh darn thing they always seem to do. Which sucks because I like a lot of the players on the Yankees and I don't really actually hate these teams in particular. If you ask Seth, he probably hates the Dodgers because he's a Padres fan. But we're gonna leave him alone because he's out working right now. But I'm just saying these playoffs, it really feels like another year of the underdog, which again I'm here for. I think it makes it more fun. I know it's not very lucrative for Major League Baseball, but it's more fun for the individual fans to get to see teams, like the Padres or frankly, even like the Tigers or Royals, do teams that really haven't had a whole lot of success recently. At least the Padres, they were in the NLCS a few years ago. And the Mets, they were in the World Series the same year that the Royals won it. So, what's crazy is that was like what's his name? Jacob deGrom was on that Mets team in 2015, and now he's barely playing baseball. Am I gonna be doing any more live streams for the games? I assume you mean. I'd have to look at the schedule. Let me just take a look here. So Wednesday, Tigers play at 3. I'll be working that day, so won't be able to do that. Thursday at 6, I won't be able to do that. I'm gonna be working for 1. I'll be working somewhat later that day, and I'll be out. I already have plans for that day. Saturday at 4:30. If it comes to a game 5, I very well could be streaming that game. But sorry, I was just checking the cellular telephone. Yeah, that would be right now the only game at the immediate point, at least in baseball. I'd like to be able to stream as many, if not all, of the championship series games, but it all is going to depend on the time and the day, I guess. Like some days I just won't be able to. Like if a game lands on a Tuesday, that'll just basically be the show. Like that'll essentially be the show. We might move the standard show to like another day. But yeah. So plan is ideally to be able to do more of these streams. But again, I don't have control of how they schedule these things. And hopefully it doesn't even have to come to a game 5 because I would rather not have to go back to Cleveland. But yeah, postseason has been so far. It's delivered for MLB, and that makes sense. It's postseason baseball, man. I love it so much. It's the best. It's the best time in sports is the month of October because you got baseball, hockey's going to be starting up it has started up today, and basketball is going to be starting up next week, I believe. So best time in sports, baby. Here we go. All right. That's enough baseball talk. All right. I could talk baseball all day, but we got to move along. Talk some NFL, talk some football. So, Lions had a bye week, so I got to relax this week. It was kind of weird because Michigan State played on a Friday. I was busy all day Saturday, so I didn't really watch any football. And then Sunday was like, guess I'll watch some of these football. And the other thing too is the Chargers, Seth's team, they were also off, so it wasn't even like I could follow a secondary team. It's like I'm like the Joker. I'm just watching the world burn, watching football. So I got a few storylines here. First of all, Thursday Night Football. Man, that Falcons Tampa Bay game, that was great. That was one of the best Thursday Night Football games. But to me, the larger narrative of this story is this NFC South division is going to be tough. And I don't mean like all of these teams are going to be powerhouses, but Tampa Bay, Atlanta, Carolina, you're basically sitting this one out. You're basically we're going to just cut it off right here. And I guess I didn't know it at the time, but now I do know it, actually. New Orleans is dead, but still, that leaves it to Tampa Bay and Atlanta. Very similar to what we had last year, except this year, I think Atlanta might be able to edge them. I mean, obviously, they get the win here, 36-30, overtime win. Kirk Cousins, 500 yards of offense. He was absolutely fantastic. This was just a great game overall. Like, I got to say, so far, the primetime games, for the most part, there's been a few duds here and there. They've been pretty entertaining. Like, I want to say it was last week. What was last week? That was the Cowboys, right? Yeah, that one wasn't great, but you still had Lions and Seahawks on Monday Night Football. You had Buffalo Baltimore, which was a blowout, unfortunately. But that was a good matchup, I thought. Going back here, just looking at some of the other primetime games. You had I thought Kansas City Atlanta, that was a pretty entertaining game, albeit low scoring. And then the Washington Cincinnati game, that was also a good one. But anyway, I don't want to get too off track here. Really great game between Falcons and the Buccaneers. Kirk Cousins has proven that he's a great quarterback. I mean, he's clearly still got it. Drake London and Darnell Mooney, both with over 100 receiving yards. Baker Mayfield, despite the low yardage, 3 touchdowns, 180 yards, only sacked the one time, no picks. Like, if you could score 30 points on that amount of offense, you'll take it. You'll definitely take that. I mean, granted, I think there was a defensive touchdown there. I'd have to double check. No, there wasn't. No. How did they score 30? Hold on. Let me do the math. 3 touchdowns. That's at least 21, or at the most 21. Or no. The least it's 18. At the second most, it's 21, which is the most likely. And there was no rushing touchdown. How did they get to 30 points? They must kick field goals. That's how it works, Mike. Yeah, they kicked like 3 field goals, right? Let's see. We're trying to figure this out. Yeah, they kicked 3 field goals. I know math. But yeah, overall though, a good game. Great to see Thursday Night Football actually put on a good game, because I can't imagine that's going to continue. Meanwhile, I got to talk about a bad game. So, first of all, the NFL needs to stop putting games in London to begin with, because it's stupid and totally contrived. I don't believe a single one of those people are real fans of either the Vikings or the Jets. It's really odd that, they all seem to have the same jersey. Like, wow, that guy's got is that a Frank Tarkenton jersey? Is that, wow, oh my gosh, I'm trying to think of what his name is. Keyshawn Johnson jersey? Oh, that's kind of odd. Why would they even have those very specific? Anyway. So the Jets fall to the Minnesota Vikings, who are apparently the best team in the NFC with a 5-0 record. I don't understand it. I think it's totally fake. I think it's totally bogus, but it is what it is. The Jets, on the other hand, are a complete and utter disaster. They are the epitome of how not to build and run a football team. And Robert Saleh today, in my great joy, got fired. And I've been hearing a lot of people say that this guy that he got whacked, right? That it was an assassination. And it's true. It seems like that's the case, because he got blindsided by it. You had a whole Monday where they were, back in town basically, and you didn't fire him. And then you had like the players had no idea. You had him getting quote unquote escorted out. Like, clearly was not clearly was not done in the most professional way. But let's not get it twisted. This guy could not coach an offense to save his life. He had a heck of a defense. Jets always had a really solid defense when he was the head coach. Very good defenses. But his offenses, and I know what people, we had Zach Wilson. Okay, what's the excuse this year? All right. Aaron Rodgers stinks. I know that. He hasn't been good since 2021. But, all this guy gets is, excuses for how bad his offense is, as if he doesn't have something to do with it. The GM has done a terrible job of building this Jets team. That's true. But he's done a terrible job of coaching the team. He brings in Nathaniel Hackett because it's Aaron Rodgers' team. Basically, everywhere Aaron Rodgers has gone, and I won't be surprised if he, how long he sticks around here in New York, because I think he's going to become public enemy number 1. But everywhere he has gone, there has been utter chaos, right? This was every year with the Packers, except at least when there was the chaos, the team was still good. They were still making playoff runs. They were still making Super Bowls. Super Bowl, I should say, not Super Bowls. But now you have the worst of both worlds. You have Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball 54 times, which he has no business doing, throwing 3 interceptions, which is exactly what it's just what he is at this point. And on top of that, you had a coach who couldn't coach an offense. You had a bunch of drama behind the scenes with, Aaron Rodgers basically bringing his boys in, bringing Alan Lazard, who's like 100 years old and is not good anymore. Like, and bringing in Nathaniel Hackett, who was just the head coach of the Broncos, who had one of the worst teams in the NFL in recent memory. Like, the whole thing is just awful. And if I'm the Jets, shut it down. Just like Gordon Ramsay and Kitchener, just shut it down. Shut it down. Just trade everybody. Start all over. Because this is a complete mess. You're stuck with Aaron Rodgers, unfortunately. You shouldn't have been going after him to begin with, because the handwriting was on the wall for Aaron Rodgers. If you saw his last season in Green Bay, he was not the same player. And now you put him behind this offensive line, which stinks. And oh, what do you know? He's throwing 3 interceptions. Oh, what do you know? He's getting sacked 3 times. Oh, what do you know? He tore his Achilles. He's out for the season. If I'm sorry, if you didn't see this end coming for the Jets, I don't know what world you're living in. You weren't paying attention to his last season in Green Bay. I know that. Or you were just living off the high that Aaron Rodgers was going to be the same Aaron Rodgers he was 3-4 years ago. He's not. He's just not. So Salah gets whacked. He's going to be the first to go, but I wouldn't be surprised if the GM by the end of this season is also let go. I think it's stupid that you're letting him run another trade deadline potentially, but it is what it is. So I hate you, Jets. I hate you, Aaron Rodgers, and I hate Robert Saleh, and I'm glad he got fired. No, just kidding. I'm not glad that he doesn't have a job. I hope he's doing okay, but he was not doing a very good job, so sorry. Sucks to suck. So meanwhile, moving along here, I gotta give a shout out to Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams, we've been following this story basically all year. Caleb Williams played probably the best game he's played all year. Played the game that, people, including myself, expected him to be playing out of the gate. There's one little baby problem with it, is that it was against the Panthers. And I know what you're thinking is, well, it's still an NFL team. And that's true. It's true. It is still an NFL team, technically. But I'm willing to give this how shall I say this? There needs to be like a Panthers adjusted stat. Like, what are these stats adjusted for the fact that you're playing against the Panthers? Regardless of any of that, 304 yards, couple of touchdowns, and you run for 34 yards. Really good day for Caleb Williams. If this is the kind of quarterback that the Browns expect him to be, and if he's like this, week to week, roughly, obviously you're hard to throw for 300 yards multiple weeks in a row, but, roughly what week to week could put up these kind of stats, the Bears might have a guy. We'll see if it continues. They're 3-2, which is not terrible, but they're behind in the division. And I don't even know who they play next week. Let me take a look. Who do the Bears play next week? They got the Jaguars at home. That's the Jaguars in London. So that could be a game where you can get yourself a couple of games up. The real test, I think most people didn't expect this, but the real test will come on the road against Washington in a couple of weeks. That could very well be, that could very well be the distinctive game between, the first and second overall pick. I was just losing my train of thought. I was like, I know there's something I want to say here, but I forgot what it is. Lions apparently interested in Trayvon Walker. Where are you seeing that, Armenian man? I have not seen that. And I guess I wouldn't be totally opposed. It'd be really funny if the Lions end up with the first and second overall pick from that draft. I would be shocked, though, if the Jaguars are going to get rid of him, especially after they just won. In their mind, they probably think they could probably claw back. They can't because Trevor Lawrence sucks, but I'd be surprised by that. I mean, if we could get him, I'm not gonna be opposed, but it'd just be really funny. Meanwhile, moving along. I feel like I say meanwhile and moving along a lot. You guys notice these things? So I know. Moving along. So Bengals and Ravens played an absolutely outstanding game. All-time 1:00 start game. Really entertaining stuff. Ravens win it in overtime, 41-38. If I'm Joe Burrow, I am trying to find the first plane ticket out of Cincinnati because this place sucks. this place is going to completely waste him. This is going to be like Carson Palmer 2.0, except that Joe Burrow is much better. Like you need to get out of here, Joe Burrow. They are not building a defense for you to support. When you put up nearly 400 yards of offense and 5, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, 5 touchdowns, and you don't win the game, get the heck on out of Dodge, because the only thing you're going to be useful for is fantasy football at that point. Then it also doesn't help that his rushing game had a total of 71 yards. I mean, Chase Brown, Zach Moss, did you guys even play? Like 24 yards from Zach Moss on 9 carries, 46 on 12 carries for Chase Brown. No touchdowns. Joe Burrow trying to put the entire team on his back. And you got to blame upper management. You got to blame coaching. Like, to me, if I'm Joe Burrow, it's like, yeah, you signed that big extension, but man, this just looks like a complete disaster. You know, I don't know where you would go, because any place that needs a quarterback at this point is, largely speaking, not a completely functional organization. Maybe Miami. Maybe, if assuming the Tua situation does not resolve itself. If he goes to Miami, the Miami immediately becomes a Super Bowl contender with Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, and then you had Joe Burrow in there. Maybe Pittsburgh. That would be so mad. Oh my gosh, could you imagine Cincy fans if he went to Pittsburgh? Cleveland. Ooh, oh my gosh. I'm just thinking. I'm picking the most nightmarish scenarios for Bengals fans. I'm sorry. If you're a Bengals fan, I want the Bengals to win. I support my fellow cat teams to set the Panthers because they suck. But I always kind of love the Bengals. I wish they go back to their old logo instead of the stupid B they have now. That looks lame and stupid. But Joe Burrow, find a ticket out of there. Jets, no, you do not want to go to the Jets. Don't go to the Jets. We just talked about them, Armenian man. The Jets are cancer. If you go to the Jets, the bad things are going to happen to you. And if you're trying to get out of a dysfunctional organization in Cincinnati and your options are the Jets, immediately just stay in Cincinnati. I'll stick around in Cincinnati. I made a Super Bowl in Cincinnati. I can stick around. The Jets, no, can't do it. I don't mean to hammer on you, Armenian man, but can't do it. Can't do the Jets. I got another thing I got to rant about, as I do. This is just a show of rants. Deshaun Watson, retire or learn Canadian, because I'm done watching you play football. Deshaun Watson stinks, and I know this is not news, but Deshaun Watson is arguably a bottom 1 quarterback in the NFL. He is awful. He is so completely out of his class. He is completely done. Like, he's done playing well. He's not even close to the player he was a few years ago back in Houston. And Cleveland, the Browns, should be absolutely ashamed of themselves. They went out and brought him in for a myriad of reasons. For one, he's an awful human being, but he might actually be a worse football player. He might be a better human being than he is a football player. So not only did you bring in a serial sexual assaulter and a completely unrepentant liar, like he will consistently basically presume his own innocence. On top of all of that, he will also be awful and lose you games. So not only did you manage to find the worst human being to be the leader on your team, you also managed to find the worst actual player to be on your football team. So great. Good work, Cleveland. You deserve everything you get, because Baker Mayfield is thriving in Tampa Bay. Despite that loss they had in overtime on Thursday night, Baker Mayfield is doing great. Baker Mayfield's winning playoff games, or at least winning a playoff game. Cleveland shut it down. Cleveland, I just talked about this with the Jets. Cleveland, shut it down. Shut it down. Trade everybody. Start all over. Trade Amari Cooper. I don't trade David Njoku. Do whatever it is you got to do to get assets. Shut it down. I like Kevin Stefanski. I don't know if you have to fire him, but you might have to do it just to restart everything, because it's a nightmare. And to think 4 years ago, this team was very close to an AFC title They played the Chiefs in the divisional round, I want to say, and were basically a bad missed penalty away from changing that game, and it's all fallen apart completely. Like it's actually sad. And meanwhile, the Commanders at this point, they're one of the most. I really like watching the Commanders. At least, like Jaden Daniels looks like an absolute dog. Jaden Daniels looks like a complete monster. So, yeah, maybe it's like it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. So, again, Browns deserve everything they get. Miles trade to the Lions. Yeah, you know what? For the right price, I'll take him. I'll take him off your hands. I'll give you I'll give you 2 first-round picks for him. Fine. Like those first-round picks should be in the high 20s, late 30s or early 30s if things go right. I'll take whatever. I don't remember what his contract is, but yeah, I'll take Myles Garrett opposite Aiden Hutchinson. That sounds like the best defensive edge combination in the league. Dan Skipper touchdown on Sunday. That'd be pretty funny. That would be pretty funny. Wait. Excuse me. And then I briefly want to talk about this as well. Just given the inconsistency of teams like the 49ers, the Rams, Cowboys, and a few other teams. They didn't play, some of these teams didn't play this week, like the Eagles. It just sort of feels like the NFC race is basically Detroit and Minnesota. And one of these teams is fake. like on the other, I mean, you also still, I guess, have teams like the Commanders who have shown some real competency here. But I'm not sure how good that defense is. I do like, Jaden Daniels, as I just said. But look, to me, like, as far as teams with actual caliber, because I think Sam Darnold played a bad game in London. I think it's going to start to really fall apart here for Minnesota here pretty soon. Or at least I'm hoping it was. And I don't see Minnesota long term being that team that threatens them. But we'll see. They play Detroit in a couple of weeks, and that could actually be a huge game for both teams. Really, see who's legit and who's not. But yeah, so yeah, I don't know. I just think I think there's a definite possibility that Detroit is basically the front runner for the NFC 1 seed. Now, obviously, you need Minnesota to fall apart here, because if they don't, you're not even gonna get the number 1 pick. There's a fire truck or something. Hold on. I actually want to see what's going on here real quick. Maybe the Bucks. Yeah, I mean, they did just lose though, so that could change. Oh, no, it's just a tow truck. I thought it was a fire truck. It's just a tow truck. It's not a fire truck. Anyway. It's 7-2 Mets, by the way. They just scored, and they got 2 men on second and third, 2 outs, bottom of the 8th. They're 3 outs away from the win, and they're just pouring it on them. All right. That's enough NFL. We'll get to the picks later on in the show. At the end of the show. You ready for hurricane? Oh yeah, that's right. You better prepare. I don't know what you're gonna do there, Armenian man. I don't know how you people down south can deal with this. I mean, I guess you probably wanted the same thing with us in the snow, but at least with the snow, it's like, it's not like, your entire house is destroyed. I guess it could be, depending on how bad the blizzard is, but more like impending doom with a hurricane. It's like, oh yeah, there's a giant storm in the Gulf of Mexico, and it's killed 400 people. Yeah, with a cat? Oh, category 2. It's like, wait, a cat fly through the wind? Category 2. Category 2. Yeah, so that's enough NFL. Let's transition then to some college football. So, I guess I'll talk about Michigan State here briefly. I have a few points I want to take away. Michigan State at this point has lost 3 straight games. Offense cannot move the football. Too much inconsistency. Cannot score. Cannot drive down the field and score. That's been the story of these 3 losses. Boston College, obviously Ohio State and Oregon. You could write those off, but I just, to me, the Oregon loss, as obviously the game was a blowout, but if you were there watching the game with me on Friday night, there was a point in this game where Michigan State was making Oregon shiver a little bit. And fumble at the 1-yard line. 3 and out after an interception at the goal line. 3 and out after another interception at the goal line. And I get it. I understand you're playing Oregon. They're a national championship contending team. I get it. It becomes a problem when you went from a 3-0 start, above 500 record, 1,000 record, right? To now right back to 500, right back to where you started. Jonathan Smith is going to be tasked with stopping the bleeding at this point. Now, Michigan State has a bye week, all right? And honestly, I couldn't think of a better time for this bye week. Because Michigan State needs to take a breather, slow down Aiden Childs for all of his flaws. This past weekend, he didn't throw an interception. He did fumble the ball, which is totally on him. It was a terrible, terrible fumble. Terrible timing, terrible. Everything about it was bad. But he didn't throw an interception. And the defense, again, like I said, you look at the final score, you're like, okay, the defense didn't play a great game. They gave up 31 points. Look, in the early stages of that game, the defense was keeping you in it. And once the game kind of opens up, once the defense has been out there for so long because the offense just cannot stay on the field, then of course your defense is going to give up these plays, right? I mean, you're going 3 and out. All right, defense, go on out there again. It's just math, right? Like it just like, let me pull up the time of possession here because I don't think it was very pretty. I mean, they had them beat by, actually, it was a lot closer in terms of time of possession, but I wonder what that was like at the half because overall it turned out to be not that big, but 477 total yards for Oregon. You can't have it. You can't have it. And I know it's Oregon. Again, I'm not like, all right, let's bury Michigan State because they lost to Ohio State and Oregon. I think 99.999% of people had them losing both of these games. Although they did cover the spread. They did cover the spread, which, like I said, is the most important thing. Granted, it was garbage time, but whatever. Michigan State covered the spread. A covering of the spread is a covering of the spread. All right? You'll take it. But on a more serious note, Jonathan Smith has to be tasked now with stopping the bleeding here. Michigan State, frankly, from a confidence standpoint, I just can't live to see another 4 or 5 win season. I mean, you got to get us into a bowl game. I know the schedule is brutal, but you got Iowa at home coming up. All right, coming off after the bye week. All right, Iowa, to use a bit of a vulgar phrase, Iowa couldn't score in a whorehouse. All right, like they are not some offensive powerhouse. You should be able to keep that game close, and Aiden Childs should be able to, put together a few solid scoring drives, which he's shown he's been able to do. All he has to do, I think that game is going to be first to 20 or so, and you can win it. And the same goes for Michigan, frankly. I know that game is going to be on the road, so it's not going to be easy, but Michigan offensively has not shown to be that much better than you offensively. Defensively, they've been very good. So it's going to be a question of who's going to out-talent you. It might just end up being Michigan. But these next 2 games, if you can at least split them, right? If you can, I mean, best case scenario, you win 2 of them. You win 2 of them, and you go to 5-3. Because then, for one, you hit the over on the win total, which is fantastic. And then you got to win 1 more game down the stretch to get into bowl eligibility. And down the stretch, Michigan State still has to play Purdue, still has to play Rutgers, still has to play, I want to say, Indiana and Illinois. And granted, both of those teams might be much tougher than I think initially anticipated. But I'm sorry, if you can't string together 3 wins down the stretch with this schedule, as the way it is, you play the 2 toughest team in your schedule. The rest of these games, are winnable. Frankly, like Oregon, Ohio State, not winnable. All right, like talent was going to win out in that. All right, you're just not as talented. The rest of these games, there might be a decent amount of talent discretion between UNC and Michigan, or UNC Iowa, or even you and Illinois. But it's not so big that a good coach, a competent coach, can't put together a couple wins. All right, like last year, Michigan State beat Nebraska. They had no business beating Nebraska. Right? Like they had no business winning that game against Nebraska. But they did. So go out and, win 3 more games. You win 3 more games, I'm going to next year with an air of, all right, we're moving in a positive direction. Jonathan Smith has control of this ship, right? He's not going to drive it into an iceberg, hopefully. So, again, stop the bleeding. Get yourself back above 500. Get a couple of nice wins. You got a home game coming up after the bye week. You're going to get healthier. You're going to get ready. Go out there and play some good football. The defense has certainly been able to do that in certain instances. Just a matter of the offense getting consistent. So, yeah, fun stuff. Really enjoy Michigan State baseball. Michigan State football. It's fun. Oh, and the Mets just beat the Phillies. 7-2, the final score. A win away from the National League Championship Series. And they got another home game. That's wild, man. That's wild. You hate to see it for Bryce Harper. You just hate to see it. I can't stand Bryce Harper. I just look at his face and I'm just like, I hate you. I hate you, Bryce Harper. I don't like you. Your face makes me angry. Anyway. So this week of college football was the week of the upset. All right. So we're going to just kind of go up and down here. I guess we'll start here. Vanderbilt beat Alabama. Now, granted, and I know it's ironic for me to say granted to any Vanderbilt win over a good team. It was at home. Not that has ever really mattered. But Vanderbilt, what a win. I can't believe this is the game. This is the weekend that I missed most of these games. But, I mean, it's not as though Alabama played like a terrible game. On defense, yes. Sure, you could say that. But, you still had Ryan Williams catch for 82 yards and a touchdown. You still had Jalen Milroe throw for a touchdown and 310 yards. Wasn't the worst game in the world for Bama as far as a stats standpoint goes. But, I mean, to lose this game is beyond, is Bama on a, maybe this is just Nick Saban losing to Louisiana Lafayette, right? Maybe this is just Kalen DeBoer's version of that. I hope for Alabama fans' sake that is the case. Because if this is just the theme of Alabama is just playing down to competition, I mean, they almost lost to Georgia last week, right? Like they're a few bad plays away from having a 2-2 season right now, yeah, I guess because they'd have 2 less losses and 2 more, or 2-3 season. Really? Yeah. I guess that's how math works. I'm just now I'm thinking about, or I guess no, it'd be 3-2, not 2 yeah, because they would lose one to Georgia, but then they also lost this to Vandy, so they very well could have been 3-2, and even more so because they almost lost to South Florida. Maybe they would be 2-3. All right, how about that? They could have been it's been a little rough for Alabama, despite the fact that they were number 1 going into this game. But I can look at this all day, this stat sheet, and try to explain to you how it happened. This is something that hasn't happened in 40 years. All right, that's how crazy we're talking. But good on Vanderbilt. This is probably their national championship because Lord knows they're never going to win anything of consequence in any lifetime. Certainly not in my lifetime, I don't think. But yeah, good for Vandy for pulling off the win here. Another upset was Tennessee Arkansas. Arkansas wins in a low scoring affair, 19-14. I gotta tell you, ever since I started noticing Nico Illuminate or whatever his name is, he has not been great. It was the Oklahoma game, which they won, but and then now the Oklahoma game is when I noticed him and sort of pointed him out. But now, I mean, you lose to Arkansas, who is an unranked team, albeit 4-2, but an unranked team, a team that you frankly should be beating every single time. And it's not just that you lose to them; it's that you had a lead in this game. You were up in the third quarter. By the end of the third quarter, you were up 14-10. And then you just die. You just die. Like, it wasn't like there was pick sixes, it wasn't like there was, a scoop and score. It just died. It was unbelievable. Unbelievable. So, yeah, it sucks for Tennessee. Again, the theme of this year of college football for me is team will win a very impressive game and then die. It's like Alabama beats Georgia, dead. Michigan beats USC, dead. The only team that hasn't been dead like this is Texas. They're the only one. They beat Michigan and they're still alive. For now. Maybe it'll be like Penn State will beat Ohio State, or the other way around. Ohio State will beat Penn State and then lose to Michigan or something. That would be absolutely tragic if they lose again. Anyway. Speaking of Michigan, they also dropped a game in unexpected fashion. They lose to Washington on the road. Little revenge. National championship rematch. And let's just say Dono did not have the kind of game that won him the game last year. He did have a good game, Donovan Edwards. 95 yards and a touchdown. But Khalil Mullings was held to just 49 yards. Jake Tuttle ends up coming into the game, throws for 10 for 18, 98 yards, a touchdown, and an interception for him. But look, I mean, Michigan was down 14 to 10 at the half. They come back a little bit, and then again, they just die in the fourth quarter. But look, to be fair, Husky Stadium, playing in Washington. Look, I know as a Michigan State fan how tough it can be to play there. It's not an easy place to play. It's not. And I think a lot of Washington, any of those, I don't know how many players were returning because they lost Penix and they lost a few other players on their team. But I think they still had this game circled. I think they wanted to win this game. This is Michigan's first road game of the year, which is absolutely crazy to me that they had played now 6 games and just one of them was on the road, which is wild. Especially it's wild given that Michigan State doesn't have back-to-back home games until the final weeks of the season. But hey, it is what it is. So overall though, Michigan, couple steps forward with the USC and the Minnesota win, and then a few steps back now with this Washington loss. I guess for Michigan, the thing is, it just the defense is not as advertised. This is now like the third game, or like not the third game. This is like it seems like every game basically. I've yet to really see an outright dominant defensive game for Michigan, and this was supposed to be one of the top defenses in college football. I mean, I just pull up the final scores here, and I know that doesn't necessarily indicate, but I guess you got Fresno State. You held them to 10 points. Good job, I guess. But Texas, they put a 30 bomb on you. Arkansas State even, they put 18 points on you. USC puts up 24. Minnesota puts up 24. And now Washington puts up 27. I mean, the last time you gave up less than 20 points, it was against Arkansas State. like it was against some no-name team that you were supposed to beat anyway. And now, you got to buy this week, but then you're going to go on the road against Illinois. That's not going to be an easy game. That's going to be national television on CBS. And Illinois is not a bad football team. And that final stretch as well, that gauntlet, you're going to have Oregon at home, on the road against Indiana. Again, another team that's scrappy, another team that could make it tough. And then, of course, Ohio State on the road. It looks like it could sort of fall apart for the Wolverines, which I'm all here for it. But, if the defense can start to put it together, then maybe they can string together a few more wins here. But they're lucky they won that USC game. I'll just say that. If they didn't win that USC game, they might be looking at like a 5-7. But now I think they're securely in like that 7-5-ish range. But we'll see. We'll see, because it's certainly not gonna be easy one way or the other. Do I have any other? Oh yeah, and Minnesota beats USC. Speaking of USC, my question about this is this just like, is USC just not built for this? And I say this like with no sarcasm. Like, is USC just not built for Big Ten football? And again, this was part of the problem with all this conference merging and just bringing in teams for the sake of bringing in markets. Like, USC offensively, I get they lost Caleb Williams, but offensively, they've looked absolutely inept at points. I mean, they just are not. They're not the team that they were. I don't think that they can handle the physicality of the Big Ten. And maybe it's just Lincoln Riley, and maybe over time USC will be able to adjust the recruiting and adjust all that, all the play style, whatever it is. As it stands, they're going to have to change their way of playing. They're going to have to change the way they're looking at recruits, because and this was a similar problem that, a team like Nebraska, who granted, might be kind of turning it around here, a team like Nebraska that comes out of the Big 12, joins the Big 10, they lose a lot of that recruiting ground of guys that were from Texas that wanted to, they're rivals with Texas, or guys that were from, that region. Like, we could see a similar problem now with, some of these California, players not being able to match up well against some of these Mid-America guys, and Mid-America guys not wanting to go play for USC. They much rather go play for Iowa or for Michigan or Ohio State or Michigan State or Penn State. Like, the problem with just grabbing all of these markets is that the recruiting just doesn't work that way, right? Like, if you're from Michigan, for example, you are grown up in a world where you want to play for U of M or you want to play for Michigan State, or frankly, you want to play for Central. like guys would probably sooner, I mean, obviously depending on whether or not they could start, but it's a harder sell, and obviously they're going to have to adjust. So I'm willing to give USC a little bit of time to adjust to the Big Ten, but as it stands right now, it doesn't look good, because that's 2 games they should have won. Michigan they should have won, and now Minnesota they should have won, and they lost both those games. So USC is going to have to make the adjustment. But let me actually, before we do a preview of this upcoming week in college football, because a lot of nothing in terms of Michigan State, obviously, but I want to take a look at the AP poll. Some decent movement here. Texas goes back to number 1, Ohio State to number 2, Oregon goes into number 3, Penn State moves up to number 4 ahead of Georgia, by the way. So your top 4, Penn State, Oregon, Ohio State, and Texas, 3 out of those 4 Big Ten teams. And 2 out of those 4 switch conferences. It's actually crazy. Texas first year in the SEC, and they're number 1 team in the country right now at 5-0. Miami jumps a couple of spots. They had a nice win last week. I don't remember who it was. Oh my gosh. Cal. I want to say they beat Cal. Could be wrong. Let me double check. Yeah. Nice win against Cal for them. Tennessee drops 4 spots. Alabama drops 6 spots all the way down to number 7 from number 1. Ole Miss climbs a little bit. Clemson climbs a bit as well. Notre Dame climbing up 3 spots. Iowa State at number 11. Iowa State, sneaky playoff team, maybe. LSU does not move. BYU. Texas A&M jumps up 10 spots. What happened to Texas A&M? Who did they beat? They must have had a nice win. Oh, they blew out. I guess that was another upset I didn't even point out. Texas A&M blows out top 10 Missouri, and they launched themselves all the way into the top 15. So Texas A&M, maybe they're kind of storming back. Obviously, a rough start to the season with the loss to Notre Dame, but they get themselves back on track here. Utah, a couple of spots up, goes to 16. Boise State up to 17. Kansas State now at 18. Indiana, who would have guessed it at 18 as well? I guess we got a tie or a three-way tie for 18. I didn't know that was possible. Oklahoma goes up to 18 as well. Missouri drops 12 spots. Pitt stays at 22. Illinois goes up to 23. Michigan, they also drop heavily. I believe that's the biggest drop is 14. Yeah, 14 spots for Michigan down to 24. Very well could end up out of the top 25 by the end of the season. I think I talked about that earlier. And SMU, they get into the top 25 as well at 25. So, yeah, a lot of movement. It's a crazy week for the AP poll, obviously, especially with, Bama and Tennessee, Texas A&M, and especially Michigan. I mean, that you just hate to see it. You just hate to see Michigan drop in power in the AP poll. You just hate to see it. But before we move on to hockey preview and then get into the picks, I want to just take a look at this week here in college football. So technically today we have Florida International against Liberty. If you don't have any self-respect and you want to watch that game, then you can do that. I just question what you're doing. I mean, just playoff baseball and you're watching Liberty. What are you doing? But looking ahead here, see what some of the matchups are. I mean, South Carolina at Alabama. I mean, hey, Bama just lost to Vandy on the road, but now they're looking to bounce back against South Carolina. Hey, South Carolina has made games interesting before, so I wouldn't be surprised if that game isn't interesting. That's at 12 o'clock on ABC. Still looking around here. Washington, Iowa might actually be a decent game. That might be a pretty okay game. The two not top 25 teams, but teams that might be fighting for that top 25 spot. Texas at Oklahoma, 3:30 on ABC. That could be a really good game. Obviously, the Red River Shootout. That's going to be, I think, a really good game, really good test for the University of Texas, the Longhorns, and frankly, a good test for Oklahoma. Obviously, that loss to Tennessee sets them back, but Tennessee loses, so it helps Oklahoma, given that Tennessee loses, and they have a chance to maybe bounce back there. You got Penn State at USC. This is a game USC has to win. I think if they want to have any semblance of maintaining their hope in the Big Ten. And frankly, it's a game Penn State's got to win. This is a tough road matchup for them. And, Penn State typically does not win these sorts of games. But USC is not all that good this year, whereas Penn State had a really good start. Outside of that, you got Florida, Tennessee. I mean, maybe that's a sneaky game given the Tennessee loss. Maybe that game is a little too close for comfort. That's at 7 o'clock on on ESPN, I should say. I think the game of the week, I think beyond any shadow of a doubt, is going to be Ohio State, Oregon. Oregon at home, 7:30 on NBC, prime time, Big Ten Saturday night. I think that's the game of the week. Two powerhouse teams in the Big Ten going at it. Both teams with an O in their logo. So yeah, I really like that. That's going to be the game to watch out for. If I were to select a game that you should be watching, Ohio State, Oregon. I think that's the one. If you don't watch that game, you also got Ole Miss at LSU at 7:30 on ABC. That could be a fun SEC matchup there. See if Ole Miss can get back on track. And frankly, same applies with LSU. And then there's also, if you are fond of hatred, Kansas State at Colorado at 10:15 on ESPN. I hate that game is that late, but it's in Colorado, so I guess that makes sense. But if you're a fan of hating, like I am, watch that game and hope that Kansas City drops a bomb on them. Or Kansas State, not Kansas City. Chiefs are not coming to town. I wish the Chiefs were coming to town just to beat up on Colorado because I hate them, but that's not the case. So, and if you really, really want to stay up, you can watch Boise State at Hawaii at 11 o'clock. People watch those games. They do. It's a real thing. People have problems. People have big, big problems. All right. So before we get to the picks, I got to talk a little bit of hockey. All right. I'm wearing the Red Wings shirt. I want to talk some hockey. And I wanted to talk a little bit of sense here because I am nervous about the Detroit Red Wings. And I think everybody should be. frankly. There is a real sense of complacency amongst Detroit Red Wings fans, and particularly amongst the dialogue about Steve Yzerman. So the Red Wings start their season this year on Thursday evening. They played Pittsburgh, I believe at home. I could be wrong, but just going up and down their lineup. Here's what we're looking at as far as forwards. You got Jonathan Berggren, JT Compher, Andrew Kopp, Alex DeBrincat, Christian Fischer, Patrick Kane, Dylan Larkin, Tyler Mott, Michael Rasmussen, Lucas Raymond, Vladimir Tarasenko, and Joe Veleno. So overall, it's a pretty decent forward room. I mean, Dylan Larkin, Patrick Kane, and Alex DeBrincat. Those three guys are going to get you goals. They're going to get you points. They're going to keep you in games. Hopefully, Alex DeBrincat does not disappear like he did last year late in the season. But those are three really solid players. And then obviously Lucas Raymond. I think he's a superstar. I think he's going to have another excellent year. I very well could see him in the 90-point range as one of those top forwards in hockey. Really good player. Really good player. And I like the addition of Vladimir Tarasenko. He's got championship caliber, played with Florida last year. I think he's a great fit for Detroit. I just really like him. And JT Compher, another guy. Like, I really like a lot of these forwards. Although, you still have a few kind of what I would call stragglers. The Andrew Kopps of the world. Is he ever really going to put anything of note together? Frankly, the Joe Velenos of the world, there are some people who like Joe Veleno. I don't really get why. I mean, if I just pull up his stats over the years, I don't see, like, nothing jumps off the page. He's been okay, but he's never eclipsed more than 30 points in a season. I know points are not the whole thing. I understand. Hockey is so complicated, guys. But when your career high is 28 points. Granted, he got that last year, so maybe you say he's on an upswing as far as development goes. But I guess I'm not like totally in love with Joe Veleno, and he's only 24, so there's that. There is still a lot of upside in him, but I guess if he was really kind of going to show me something, I think he would have shown it last year. I suppose he's still got room to show it this year, but I don't know. I could see myself getting better at the forward position over Joe Veleno. I could. Michael Rasmussen, a similar sort of thing. Like, he's a glue guy. He's a tough player. I don't hate him. I don't hate any of these players, except for Andrew Kopp. That Andrew Kopp, I don't hate him either. I say that. I jokingly say that, but Andrew Kopp is just a lot of the time he's just sort of a dead body on the ice, practically. Like, he just doesn't do a whole lot. And frankly, I'm not sure how confident I should be in Jonathan Berggren. So Jonathan Berggren, he's one of the newer, quote unquote. He was on the team a couple of seasons ago, and then last year was a nothing. Like, he couldn't make the team when the team was actually at its best point. So it's kind of strange to me in a way that he is making the team now, but that's because, of the departures of, David Perron, Daniel Sprong, that he ends up making the roster. But that, to me, is not exactly a roaring endorsement. If he was in a position where he was on the team significantly to not better than David Perron or Daniel Sprong to, okay, now you're good. Look, I hope Jonathan Berggren comes in and he lights up the lamp a lot, but all of that is to say, okay. It's a pretty overall solid forward room. We're going to move along for the sake of continuing the discussion. On the defense side, you got Ben Sherratt, Simon Edvinsson, Eric Gustafsson, Albert Johansson, Oli Mata, Jeff Petrie, and Moritz Seider. I got to be honest with you. I do not like our defenseman room. I really don't. The defense last year was terrible, and we largely are running it back. And ironically, as far as offensive defensemen go, like defensemen who actually can help, score. You lose Shane Gostisbehere, which I really didn't like losing him and having to keep around a dead body like Jeff Petrie, who's practically the only reason Jeff Petrie is here is because his dad, used to play for the Tigers. tell me a hockey reason why he's here. I'd love to hear it because he stinks. Like, he's not good on defense. He's not a good offensive defenseman either. He's well past his prime. I don't get it. I don't know why Jeff Petrie is still here. I don't know why he is. I mean, I guess I'm happy that Albert Johansson and Simon Edvinsson are, starters on this team, and they're likely going to be that more higher line defenseman. But I guess to me, if we have a defenseman in our system, like, I don't see what the purpose would be in keeping him in the AHL as opposed to, putting him in Jeff Petrie's spot, because Jeff Petrie's going to suck. So if Jeff Petrie's going to suck and he has no future here, I'd much rather throw a young defenseman, a young potential star defenseman, give him a little bit of growing room. And, you might say, oh, well, maybe he's going to suck and you're going to hurt his defense. I don't know that that's what's going to happen, for one. I don't know that he's going to suck. But if he does suck, it's no different than if Jeff Petrie sucked, right? Except in this case, player X has a future. Jeff Petrie has no future. And then the goalie room, you have Ville Husso, Alex Lyon, and Cam Talbot. And this is where I really get upset. The Red Wings have two ostensibly really good goalie prospects. One of them is Trey Augustine. He's not going to be seen for, I would say, at the earliest, next year to a year or 2 years. The other goalie prospect, however, Sebastian Cossa. Let me look up when Sebastian Cossa was drafted, because let me just pull this up really quick. Let's see. He was drafted 15th overall in 2021. By my math, that's 3 years ago. I'm not going to say that I know more about hockey than Steve Yzerman. I'm not. I don't know more about hockey than Steve Yzerman. Here's what I will say. When this is going to be his third year of, at least in some way, playing AHL hockey, where last year in the AHL had a sub-3 goals against average, had a 91 save percentage. If he is not ready to be playing NHL games by the end of this year, I am a little concerned with that situation, because Ville Husso and Alex Lyon, they are not it. All right, Ville Husso can't stay healthy. Alex Lyon is not consistent. And Cam Talbot, solid year with the Kings. I'm not totally stomping on the Cam Talbot acquisition. But I would much rather, again, it's a similar thing with Jeff Petrie. I'd much rather see Sebastian Cossa over a Ville Husso. And maybe I will end up seeing Sebastian Cossa because Ville Husso is going to get hurt. But I'm sorry, if Ville Husso gets hurt and I got to hear, Michael Hutchinson or Steve, who was the other guy Steve Reimer, James Reimer. If I got to hear that those guys are in that, and meanwhile, Sebastian Cossa at age, 22, going to be 22 in a month, is just sitting in the AHL playing for the Grand Rapids Griffins in front of tens and tens of people. Is he our first round goalie? We did trade to get the pick to take Sebastian Cossa, right? Like, he's supposed to be a good player at some point. Am I wrong? Like what is the purpose of, basically keeping him in the minor leagues until he's like 30? And the other thing that bothers me, it's like, I'm not asking for some 18-year-old to come play goalie. He's going to be 22 years old next year. That's older than some of the players that are on the team right now. Like how old is, let me just double check some of this. Like Albert Johansson, I think he's a little older as well. He's 23. Simon Edvinsson, I'm pretty sure he's 21. Simon Edvinsson's 21. He's on the team. So don't give me this age nonsense. And here's the other thing too. Plenty of goalies throughout the years that are worth their salt. They make the team at young age. I want to say Vasilevsky was on the team at 21. And Vasilevsky was a guy that was drafted by Steve Yzerman. All right, so I'm not even straw manning with some different organization. This was the same guy, right? And this all sort of stems back to a general concern I have with the Red Wings, which is all I hear about is how great our farm system is and how many deep, prospects we have. Let me just see if I can find, here, Prospect Central. This is great. Like, if I could, I'd rather actually have like a list of, let me just get Detroit Red Wings prospects. Like, here we go. Detroit Red Wings in system, elite prospects. Like, I've heard a whole lot about Axel Sandin-Pellikka, and I don't expect him to be playing because he was drafted a couple of years ago. I've heard a whole lot about Red Savage, or, and I guess Johansson just made the team. Or what's his name? Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the guy's name. Carter Mazur. I've heard a whole lot about these guys. Marco Casper. Another one of these guys. Where are they? Like, and again, because the immediate response from Red Wings fans, and I'm sure they're going to respond this way, is, oh, well, what do you want? Some 18-year-old, some 19-year-old to come? Let me see how old some of these guys are. Because I know for a fact that they are not like 2 years old, as many Red Wings fans would have us believe. Right? Like Marco Casper is going to be 20 years old, or he is 20 years old. Like, he's not some like teenager, all right? And plenty, again, if he is worth his salt, we took him in the first round. He was our first pick in the first round. He was, I believe, a top 5 pick, or maybe a top 10 pick at least. Like, these aren't some like random nobodies. I mean, Carter Mazur, I know for a fact, is not, super young because he played in college. Carter Mazur is 22 years old. Like, those are two guys that I would rather have Carter Mazur over. I would have Carter Mazur over Joe Veleno. Maybe Joe Veleno is going to come out and he's going to make me look like a total idiot. I hope he does. My whole point is, like, I'm not talking about, calling out Michael Brandt-Signigaard, right? The guy we just drafted. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about bringing up guys that were drafted in the same class as, Mo Seider in some cases. Like, Elmer Soderblom was drafted in the same class as Mo Seider. So I guess he sucks now, right? I mean, he hasn't made the team. Like, the only guy from that class that's made the team is Mo Seider. So you want to talk about how great our farm system is? Great. How the media ranks it super high. I'm sure they're all right. Where are they? Why aren't they on the team? I'm not asking for the guys that were taken in the 4th round or the 5th round. I guess Carter Mazur was taken later. But in the case of Marco Casper, I'm asking for a 1st round pick. Right? So, look, either way, and I know this is tough for some Red Wings fans to accept. If you don't make the playoffs this year, heads are going to have to roll. Derek Lalonde is dead, as far as I'm concerned. And frankly, depending on how it ends up looking, Steve Yzerman very well might have to go as well. And I don't want to hear about, well, give him time. Give him time. It has been 5 years. He got here in 2019. All right? We're not like making the playoffs is the bar, right? You make the playoffs, you give yourself another year, basically. So everybody's saying that the Red Wings are building the powerhouse. That's, if you ask any hockey fan, they say Stevie Y is building the powerhouse, building a contender. Well, I'd like to win in 2026, not in 2046 or 2062, right? So we'll see how it ends up playing out. I do love hockey. I love my Red Wings, and I want them to win. But I just feel like at a certain point, this incremental increase in play, an incremental increase in team being good, that is going to level out. Because at some point, you have to take a leap. At some point, you have to say, all right, we're going all in. We're going to go out. We're going to buy a big name free agent. We're going to make a trade for a big name player. He really hadn't done that with the exception of maybe Alex DeBrincat. That was probably his biggest acquisition. And hopefully DeBrincat has a better season overall than he did last year, even though he had a pretty good season. He needs to have a great season. So, I hate to be negative Mike. I don't like being negative Mike. but I worry. All right. I'm coming from a place of love. All right. I don't hate Steve Eiserman. I like a lot of the things I like more of the things that he's done that he hasn't. I'm more concerned with the status of the team and less concerned and less about individual moves, right? Because the individual moves might be able to make sense. I might be able to rationalize them. But if the individual moves added together present a team that is just not competitive, well, then I don't know if maybe I need to reevaluate the individual moves or those individual moves aren't moving the needle enough and more better moves need to be made. So we'll see. Season begins on Thursday. And it's funny because, the Tigers and the Lions basically have taken over the city of Detroit as far as any sort of sports media goes. So I think a lot of people aren't even thinking about the Red Wings season at this point, but I am because I'm a warrior and I'm a fighter and I'm whatever the rest of that Alex Jones quote is. I'm a pioneer and I'm coming. I hate that I just said that. So, all right. Yeah, that's the end of this segment. I got nothing more. All right. All right. And then briefly, before we get into the picks, I wanted to just do a little bit of overall NHL season preview as well. So if you bear with me here. So in the Eastern Conference, Panthers defending their titles. Bobrovsky, Reinhart, are they going to continue the sex? No. Are they going to continue the success for the Kitties? So, Florida coming in just on the high of their Stanley Cup winning season. Probably, I don't know if they're going to continue. They're going to be favorites, but still, overall, still a well-balanced team, a team that has maintained a lot of those stars. But, in the NHL, it can come at you fast. Vegas, same thing last year, and they lost in the first round in the playoffs. So we'll see if Florida can maintain that amount of success. But either way, they're probably still riding high, all 40 of their fans. Another team I want to watch out for is the Devils. The Devils last year, technically they got a little bit of a head start. They're up 2-0. They got 4 points, 2-0, because they played a couple of international games there. 4 points, leading the league in points there are the Devils. But last year had a very disappointing season. Injuries really sort of ran that season apart. They weren't able to get it back together. So they're definitely looking to bounce back. I think they very well could bounce back. Jack Hughes and the rest of that team, very, very solid, very tough team to beat. We'll see if the goaltending and if the defense is going to improve. Because on top of the injuries, there was also questions of goaltending. So we'll see if they can make it happen. That's a good start. 2-0, I guess. And then who will be the surprise team in the East is my question. Because last year, I guess if you wanted to say if there was a surprise team, I suppose you could say Philly was a surprise team last year. Maybe the Capitals. The Capitals ended up making the playoffs. They kind of came out of nowhere and, ended up beating out the Red Wings for that final playoff spot. I think a lot of people pretty much wrote the Capitals off to that point. But I wrote down a few teams. One, I put Detroit. Obviously, Detroit missing the playoffs last year. And, could they just come out of nowhere with now a full season of Patrick Kane and, you bring in a couple more prospects and Johansson and Berggren into the fray. Maybe that changes things for Detroit. Maybe they come out and they surprise. Maybe they have a season similar to the one the Devils had a couple of years ago where they just come out of nowhere and just shock the NHL, which I would love to see. But we'll see about that. I also put Buffalo. Just a team that's sort of been spinning its wheels for a very long time. Don't really know. They are just they always feel like a team that at one point they're like, oh, okay, they're gonna do it, and then no, they don't because it's Buffalo. So I don't know. I threw them in there because I had to throw somebody in there, and I also threw in Philly. I don't think it's going to happen again, but I didn't think it was going to happen last year. Philly, I'm going to be honest. I don't know anybody on their team, but they came out of nowhere and they almost made the playoffs. They were And I will still never forgive them for emptying that net and screwing the Red Wings, because if they didn't empty their stupid net because they needed to win in regulation, losers, get out of here. But yeah, the Flyers, I put them in there. Maybe they do something. As far as the top contenders, I guess you still have the Rangers, although I don't know how much steam they have left. They've been just really disappointing the last couple of years, have not been able to go on a real run here. Carolina, team that's just sort of a suffocating defense, really good goaltending, but I guess I just in hockey, it's so, I mean, there's just certain teams that I look at them and I just don't see it. It's hard to predict hockey in general. I mean, Toronto, I guess you can pretty much always predict they're going to lose in the playoffs at some point. So like, but that's more of just a statistical thing. It's like, oh yeah, well, like statistically, they've lost most of the time in the playoffs, so you can just bet on them to lose in the playoffs. In the Western Conference, a couple of other questions. I threw in this just because it's been something of a storyline with the NHL. Utah gets the hockey club, the Utah Hockey Club, first year for them. One of the things that's been weird about the NHL is that, like, first year expansion, I know this isn't technically an expansion team, but first year new teams have done actually pretty well. Seattle, they made the playoffs, not this past year, but the year before that. And then obviously Vegas got off and has stayed at a successful pace. It's really weird to me that the Las Vegas Golden Knights are currently one of the most competently run hockey organizations in the NHL. But we'll see if Utah, I mean, like, thing is, you're trying to rebuild you're trying to not just rebuild a team, because, formerly the Coyotes, but you're also just trying to establish a fan base in Utah. I think certainly there's probably a good amount of people in the Utah area who would be interested in a hockey team, and there's a reason they moved there to begin with. There's something of a market there. So maybe they come out and they surprise the world and they have a really good team. I mean, Arizona had some pretty decent players. They had some prospects. They were moving in a decent direction, not ideal, but there was a point last year where they were in the playoffs. I don't know if that's going to happen again, but it is what it is. And then secondly, Vancouver. Can they continue where they left off? Really disappointing end of the season, I'd say, for Vancouver. Although, to be fair, I don't think anybody expected them to be where they were. So maybe probably wasn't as disappointing to Vancouver fans. But now you're in a season of expectations. Was it a fluke? Was it just, a not shot in the dark, flash in the pan for the Canucks? I hope it wasn't, because that's a team, that's franchise that has never had any success. And a lot of those Canuck fans, those guys, they rock for their team, and it's a fun team. You got Hughes and Roenick on that team, so it's a fun team when they're rolling. But yeah, really, I found it disappointing and for Vancouver. But now again, this is the year with expectations. See how they can step up to the plate and maintain that success. And speaking of teams that need to maintain that success, Edmonton, obviously the reigning Western Conference champions, and one win away from a Stanley Cup for Connor McDavid. Look, to me, it's kind of put up or shut up at this point for the Oilers. This has been, I mean, how many years have they made the playoffs with Draisaitl and McDavid and Evander Kane and all these guys? You gotta win it. I mean, like, you really could have or should have won it last year. I mean, you got to a game 7. It's anybody's game at that point. But now it's like, again, the longer it goes where they're contenders, but they don't actually win, or they don't actually make progress. I guess in this case, they did make progress. They made it to the Cup, and it's not easy to win. I understand. But for Edmonton, I really want Connor McDavid to win it, because he's so good, and he's the modern Wayne Gretzky. I mean, not as good as Wayne Gretzky. Let's relax there for a second. But he's everything Wayne Gretzky was for the Oilers before he started winning, right? Like, you got to get over that. You got to get over this hump. Bring the Cup back to Canada. As much as I enjoy the Cup not going back to Canada, if it's going back to anybody, I wouldn't mind it going to Connor McDavid. So they're definitely a team that needs to have a great year. Needs to have a year to remember. And then I also asked the question of who's going to surprise in the West. So I listed again 3 teams. You got Nashville. I know they missed, or actually they did make the playoffs last year, didn't they? I want to say they did. I can't remember. If they did, they didn't do much. That's another team. Nashville has not really had a whole lot of success. One of the problems is your name is the Predators, and it's really hard to yell, to root for Predators in general. It's just kind of awkward. But yeah, maybe they step up, maybe they surprise, buddy. And then Seth's team, the Ducks, the Anaheim Ducks, rocking the best logo in sports, the old school Anaheim Mighty Ducks logo with the duck mask. So much better than their modern logo. They should just keep this logo forever because it's so perfect. It's amazing. Everybody loves it. I don't know why they ever changed it, even though they won a Stanley Cup when they did change it. Keep this logo. Maybe the Anaheim Ducks, they've been in this, perpetual rebuild as well, where, Trevor Zegras and some of these other prospects and some of these other players they've got, but hasn't resulted in tangible success. It hasn't resulted in wins. So maybe this will be the year for the Ducks to break through and, get themselves into the playoffs, or at least be contenders down the stretch for the playoffs. And then LA, another team that's kind of made the playoffs last couple of years. See if they can step up. See if they can start to go on a run here. They were carried in a way by Cam Talbot last year with his excellent goaltending, and they obviously lose him to Detroit. So it's a little bit of a awkward state for the Kings. Obviously, Kings have had relative success recently, and they're going back to a really solid old school logo. The NHL, man, they are undefeated in terms of sports graphics. That's what's so frustrating about the NHL being so unpopular, largely, like comparatively, is like their logos are so good. Their jersey, so good. And nobody even knows. Nobody even. Oh. Yeah, but hey, NHL season starting today, officially. Although technically it started with the Devils and the Sabres in a international series, and then the Red Wings will start on Thursday. So hockey's back. Hockey is back. It's crazy to think that it's back. I mean, it's so funny, right? Because like hockey comes back when baseball is in its prime. Football is entering, the kind of midpoint stretch of games. Teams starting to go on bye weeks. College football is at about its halfway point. Hockey just sort of sneaks in the background, and then you get to closer to December, January, and it starts to get really more into the peripheral and into the front eventually once you get into March and April. But yeah, so that's sort of that. All right. So let me just double check. There's nothing else, right? Yep. All right. So it is that time of the show. Everybody's talking about it, and people are telling me about it. You won't believe this. Probably because it's not true, but you won't believe this. I actually was out on the street, and some random homeless guy, he just like shows up. He comes up to me, and he's like, "The pigs!" I was like, "Don't scream at me. I'm scared." But yeah, I guess even the homeless are talking about the picks. So I don't know how to transition from this. Just play the music, I guess. Play the music. This is good. This is good. All right. So, oddly enough, in the regular season, me and Seth are actually tied in our overall record. So we've been equally successful, I suppose, 43 and 35 for the both of us. He's just slightly narrowing me out in the overall record. So, anyway, week 6, Thursday night football. 49ers visiting Seattle, taking on the Seahawks. Seth is taking the 49ers. I'm gonna take the Seahawks. Look, the 49ers have not looked the same without Christian McCaffrey. There's something about that team is a little off with the injuries. The Seahawks obviously coming off a devastating loss to the Giants, but I do think that offense has the ability to kind of flip it back on. We saw it against Detroit. Geno Smith can put up yards, and it's going to be at home, prime time. I got a good feeling about this for the Seahawks, and I'll probably end up looking like a fool. But give me the Seahawks. Jaguars at the Bears, although this is the London game. Seth is taking the Bears. I'll agree. I'll take the Bears. Look, the Jaguars, they very well could have or should have lost that game against Indianapolis last Sunday. They got away with one. Chicago's riding off the high of beating Carolina. I think they can continue their stretch here, taking on another rough opponent. Although the neutral site of it all does alter things, for sure. But I do think the Bears come away with one. Commanders visiting Baltimore, taking on the Birds, the Ravens. Seth is taking the Ravens. I'll take the Ravens as well. The Commanders are a fun team. Jaden Daniels had a really good season so far, as I'm concerned. He's the favorite for Rookie of the Year. But the Ravens are just too good, at least as far as their current talent outlook is. Derrick Henry, I think, is going to run all over that defense. And Lamar Jackson is going to be able to slice and dice with, Isaiah Likely and, Zay Flowers. I think they're just too good of a team. Mark Andrews as well. I'm pretty sure Mark Andrews isn't hurt, is he? Pretty sure he's still okay. Give me the Ravens. Get the win. Cardinals visiting the Pack. Seth is taking the Packers. This is actually a really tough game for me because Cardinals coming off a gutsy win against the 49ers. That was on the road, I want to say, and now they're on the road against the Pack. The weather might be a little colder, though, which I don't know. That might not actually be all that favorable because the Pack coming off of a nice win against LA, but it was mostly on the back of that defense getting a lot of interceptions on Matt Stafford. I think they probably do take advantage of Kyler Murray's. I'm just going to take the Pack. When in doubt, take the home team in the NFL. So, yeah, give me the Packers. Here's a real barn burner of a game. The Texans visiting New England, taking on the Patriots. Seth is taking the Texans. Boy, we're just all in agreement here. Yeah, I'll take the Texans. CJ Stroud, impressive win last week at home against the Bills. Needed the win over a tough team, and now they get a sort of bye week. Although Drake May is going to be starting this game. That was what the breaking news was. I believe sometime earlier today that Drake May is going to be starting this game. But you got a rookie quarterback going up against, I guess, a sophomore quarterback and CJ Stroud. Yeah, give me the Texans to get the win here. I don't know how good the Patriots are. Talent-wise, I think talent is going to be the difference here. Buccaneers at the Saints. Seth is taking where is this pick? Buccaneers. Sorry, no Derek Carr. As though that might actually be a benefit. I'll still take the Buccaneers. I think they had a monster game against the Falcons, but unfortunately, overtime is what it is. They weren't able to get the win. I'll take the Buccaneers to get the win on the road against the Saints. I don't believe in the Saints. I'm sorry, they're not a good team, and it's usually never good when your starting quarterback is Derek Carr and he goes down. That's usually never a good sign. So yeah, give me the Bucs. Browns at the Eagles. Seth is taking the Eagles. Eagles are going to win this game. Coming off the bye. The Browns are basically a second bye because Deshaun Watson is terrible. Yeah, give me the Birds. Get the win here. Colts at the Titans. Ooh, this is quite the game. Seth is taking the Colts. Jeez, we're taking this is all chalk. I agree. Yeah, I'll take the Colts. Titans are terrible. They're basically running their quarterback room right now. They're coming off a bye. Their quarterback room right now is Will Levis versus Mason Rudolph, which is basically the Spider-Man meme of they're just looking at their point is the same person. Both two bad quarterbacks. I think the Colts will bounce back. They very well should have or could have had the win over the Jaguars. I think this is going to be a must-win for them. Obviously, divisional matchup. I think they got to get the win here on the road. Give me the Colts. Chargers visiting the Broncos. Seth is taking his Los Angeles Chargers of San Diego. I am going to agree because Chargers are coming off the bye, and despite the fact that the Broncos did win last week, they were playing the Raiders. So again, it's weird. Like people don't understand. It's actually just a bye week, believe it or not. People don't understand that. But actually been a couple of nice weeks for the Broncos here. But I don't think it lasts because I don't believe in John Payton's plan, quote unquote. Steelers at the Raiders. Jeez, this is a rough week for football. I got to be honest with you guys. Seth is taking the Steelers. Yeah, I will agree. I'll take the Steelers. No further comment. The Raiders are actually just a bye week, and the Steelers also are a terrible offense. But yeah, I'll take the Steelers to get the win. Falcons at the Panthers. Jeez, though, Pete's, man. I mean, this is terrible. How can anybody watch this? Falcons at the Panthers. Seth is obviously taking the Falcons because why would you take anybody other than Falcons? I think I would probably take the Argonauts over the Panthers, to be perfectly frank. Like the Falcons are just a far and away better team than the Panthers. The Panthers are terrible. I'm not gonna waste too much time on it. Andy Dalton, he's better than Bryce Young, but so is a cardboard box. So yeah, give me the Falcons. Lions heading back to Dallas, trying to get a little revenge, taking on the Cowboys. Seth knows where to go here. It's the Lions. Yeah, taking the Lions here. Coming off of the bye, Lions are going to be healthier than they were last week. And healthier than they were 2 weeks ago with no Frank Ragnow, no Brian Branch. But they're coming back. I think both of them are going to be a massive impact for Detroit here. Dallas, despite the fact that they got the win against the Steelers, looked terrible for most of that game. I think Detroit has had this game circled for a very long time. We all know the nonsense that the Cowboys were able to pull last week. I hope the Lions drop a 40 bomb on them and Dak Prescott throws 4 interceptions because that franchise deserves nothing more than another loser quarterback. So give me the Lions and the points. I'm not even talking about bets. Give me the Lions to win by 100. Bengals at the Giants, Sunday Night Football. Oh, Sunday night. This is a terrible, terrible matchup. Seth is taking the Bengals here. Yeah, give me the Bengals. I don't know what NBC was thinking when they put this game on the lineup. I guess maybe they expected Daniel Jones to be a little bit better, but yeah, neither of these teams, both of these teams seem to find ways to lose. But the Bengals, I think this is a get-right game for them. It's going to be on the road, so it's not going to be easy, as all road games are tough. But, give me the Bengals. I think they'll win pretty soundly. And then finally, Monday Night Football. Bills visiting New York. I guess New Jersey, taking on the Jets. Seth is taking the Bills. Jeez, I think we might have I think this is going to come down to Thursday Night Football. Oh my gosh, it totally is. This is totally going to come down to Thursday Night Football is going to determine who wins this week in the pick'em because I'm taking the Bills. Yeah, I hate the Jets. They just fired their head coach. It's usually never a good sign when you fire your head coach. You're basically on the downward spiral. So yeah, I think this is a good get right game for the Bills after a couple of heartbreaking losses, get themselves back on track to winning that division. So yeah, got to win this game. It's a divisional matchup. You got to win it. Give me the Bills. Get the win. All right. So rounding it out, 49ers at the Seahawks. Seth is taking the 49ers. I am taking the Seahawks. Jaguars, Bears, we're both taking the Bears. Commanders, Ravens, we're both taking the Ravens. Cardinals, Packers, we're both taking the Packers. Texans, Patriots, we're both taking the Texans. Buccaneers, Saints, we're both taking the Buccaneers. Browns, Eagles, we're both taking the Eagles. Colts, Titans, we're both taking the Colts. Chargers, Broncos, we're both taking the Chargers. Steelers, Raiders, we're both taking the Steelers. Falcons, Panthers, we're both taking the Falcons. Lions, Cowboys, we're both taking the Lions. Bengals, Giants, we're both taking the Bengals. And Bills, Jets, we are both taking the Bills. I gotta say, this is probably like a record of how many things we have in common. But either way, those are your Week 6 picks for the NFL. Kirby Joseph gets a pick 6. Both Monty and Gibbs have monster games. They run D as their run D is crap. Yeah. If Melanfano returns, that'd be great. That'd be awesome. I don't know if he will though. He was on the IR, so probably not going to return for that game. But you just said Sewell locks down Parsons. I don't even know if Parsons is going to play. Did he play last week? I don't know if he could have because he was hurt. Either way, I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean Lions 37, Cowboys 17. That'd be awesome. I would be ecstatic. That's a 4:25 start, by the way. So that's like America's game of the week. I want to say that's the Tom Brady. Tom Brady's going to be calling that game. It'll be the first game that he gets to call. The Lions. I want to say he's like called basically only Cowboys games. Like he called Cowboys Browns, Cowboys Saints, now Cowboys Lions, and then in between he's called Bucks Eagles. What was the other game he called? What was the game he called this week? I don't even know. But that is actually where we're going to wrap up the show. So, again, big show. This is a long show. 2-hour show. Goodness gracious. It's got to be the longest show in BS sports history. So, yeah, long show. We had a lot to talk about, so we had to break it down. Had to do it to him. So, if you enjoyed, hit the like, hit the subscribe. Do shows every Tuesday evening, same time, same channel. You already know. Little look ahead here. So, I talked about this. If there is a Game 5 on Saturday, I am at this point in time planning on streaming that Game 5, Tigers Guardians. I am also for sure planning on doing Lions Cowboys. So that is it for sure. A possibility is that Tiger game. Possibility. But hopefully it doesn't come to that. So with that though, that's all we got. But Michigan State is on a bye week, so there's going to be no Michigan State game. And then following that bye week, I'm going to be tailgating that weekend, so there will be no Michigan State that either. So either way, we're down the stretch. We're going to be past both the football teams bye, so it's going to be a little hectic here in the next few weeks. But either way, just a little bit of that note. And then once we get the schedules for the American League Championship Series, assuming the Tigers do end up winning this divisional series, I'll probably, talk about what that's going to look like. But either way, hit the like, hit the subscribe. We'll be back for sure on Sunday, potentially on Saturday if there's Game 5. That's all I got. So have a good night, everybody. And I will see you this weekend at some point. I don't know when. So see you later. Have a good night. See ya. Good night.